particularly groups such as IRI and NDI, to operate was because the Mubarak regime was very leery of having any challenges to its power. There seemed to be more of a sense last summer that perhaps this interim government, that SCAF, would be more likely to allow these groups and local groups to operate. Was this a mischaracterization or a misjudgment by officials both here in this building and in Cairo? Because it seems as if it's just gotten even tougher for these groups to operate.
Well, Ross, thank you for putting that way. I think the part of this that's very difficult to understand, bewildering, frankly, is that both Egyptian NGOs and the international NGOs and the ones we support, NDI, IRI, Freedom House, have been playing an enormous role in supporting the very good elections that we've had. So they've been of value, the Egyptian ones, the international ones, to this transition process. They have played a role in training election monitors, training election workers, helping political parties to establish themselves, get their message out, campaign without choosing winners and losers, without supporting any individual candidate. So they have been very active throughout this period. Were largely allowed to be so. Our understanding from our contacts with the Egyptians involved in the political process, including Muslim Brotherhood, Salafis, is that they have also partaken of their local NGO programs, of our NGO programs, and have made good use of them in preparing them for the elections. So you have these NGOs which are proving their value in terms of supporting a clean, open, transparent, increasingly democratic transition in Egypt. They're playing a very strong role, and yet after the fact almost, between these two rounds, they're facing this harassment. So it's quite bewildering as to why this is a good idea for Egypt's democracy, and that's the point that we're trying to make.
You will not concede that it was a mistake to trust SCAF, that these groups would be able to carry out their work, that they wouldn't be harassed. I mean, are we now expecting to hear that some of these Americans are going to be forcibly detained and have their passports taken from them?
Again, Roz, the bizarre aspect of this, the bewildering aspect, is that they have been able to work, they were able to work, and they performed a valuable service, primarily the Egyptian ones, but also the international ones. So, from our perspective, this harassment is counterproductive to the larger goal of Egyptians being able to get where they want to go, which is a more democratic, open, prosperous Egypt.
So do you think that this expression is an expression of hostility towards the United States or towards Egyptians trying to learn democracy?
I'm not going to get inside the heads of the officials who are involved in this. As we talked about a little bit yesterday, this is a new day in Egypt, and the fact that you have open elections, the fact that you have grassroots groups trying to support them, and that you have a blossoming of international support is something that is relatively new in the Egyptian system, and there's clearly some Egyptians in the bureaucracy who are not understanding its value and not in the 21st century, shall we say.
The Secretary is going to have to go to Capitol Hill in the next 2 weeks and justify why the State Department is going to be asking for X millions of dollars for this kind of democracy promotion work in Egypt and in other countries around the region. She's going to be asked the question because members of Congress are already asking, they don't seem to like us, they don't seem to care for us, why should we be spending our money on people who don't like us and don't want us there?
Well, Roz, you're absolutely right. As we said before, the Secretary does have certification responsibilities before the money that the Congress has already appropriated can flow. And, these are points that we're obviously making clear to the Egyptians, as Assistant Secretary Posner did yesterday in Cairo. Please.
One more, Egypt.
Yes.
Can you just clarify that Muslim Brotherhoods also seek India's official help and India's model of elections? If you know anything about this, if anybody talk about from India that they came to help, get the help?
I don't know anything about that, girl. Josh?
On Bahrain?
Yeah.
State Department has prepared a new set of arms sales to Bahrain replacing the old program, which was missiles and Humvees. I'm wondering why change the package of arms sales we're offering to Bahrain, and can you talk about what's in the new package?
Josh, I'm going to take that one because I do know that we made some changes, but I need to get the details. Okay. Saeed?
Yes, on the Palestinian issue,
Yeah.
has there been any new development in the last 24 hours since the talks apparently were suspended or stopped?
Well,
No,
you've
no.
seen the statement from Foreign Minister Judah characterizing this as a chance for the parties to go back to their capitals, to consult. So kind of a pause as we discussed yesterday, and both the Jordanian hosts and we are very much encouraging the parties to come back to the table in relatively short order after they've had a chance to consult.
And one more, are you aware of discussions that former advisor to President Obama, Dennis Ross, is having in Israel with Prime Minister Netanyahu and his advisor, Yitzhak Milcho, on possible ways out of this, the current stalemate?
I've heard about this, but I can't speak to the mission. You know, Dennis Ross is now a private citizen, but he also has an association with the White House as an unpaid advisor. So I'm going to send you to the White House in terms of
There's been
how this
allegation
might. Yeah.
that there's been, some people are claiming, a claim has been made that Mr. Ross, in coordination with the White House, is bypassing the State Department in these efforts. Could you comment on that?
Well, start with the fact that the White House and the State Department are in lockstep on these policies and have been from the beginning. And Dennis Ross has, been an advisor in this process. He's now an unpaid advisor. So we don't see it that way, but I'm going to send you to the White House with regard to his specific mission.
But wait a minute. I mean, I see what you're saying, but especially given the fact that Dennis Ross is not in government anymore, is not an official, don't you think that the State Department or top White House officials that are actually working for the government should be the ones conducting diplomacy with the Israelis, not some kind of back channel between, I don't think it's freelance. I think it's, Dennis Ross going on behalf of the White House. But, I mean, don't you think that Jeff Feltman or the U.S. ambassador to Israel or some other senior official should be conducting diplomacy of the U.S. government? David Hale, thank you.
All of those things are also happening with regard to this specific mission, and how much of it is Dennis's private travel and how much of it is in this role as an uncompensated advisor. You need to talk to the White House about that. I don't have those details. But frankly, Dennis has been a good partner to administrations of all kinds, whether he was in government or out of government, and always remains in close touch. So in terms of some sort of split in policy, it's just not there.
Just a question on that. Yeah, he's been a good friend and partner for administration as well. How much success has he had?
That strikes me as a
I'm sorry, no, it's
rhetorical
just a pretty
question.
pretty
These
obvious.
issues are difficult. If and when Arab-Israeli peace is struck, I have no doubt that his role will be
Yeah, I'm sure.
fully explained. Scott, thanks.
A question on Senegal, please. The
Yeah.
Constitutional Court will decide today whether President Abdoulaye Wade has the right to run for re-election. Deputy Assistant Secretary Fitzgerald has already said that the president should retire and that his decision to seek a third term is regrettable. Can you tell us why the United States is telling the head of a sometime ally that he should not run for re-election?
Well, obviously, we respect Senegal's political and legal processes, so we are not going to get ahead of the Senegalese Constitutional Court in making a determination here. However, we do continue to believe that his decision to try to run for a third term as president does have the potential to jeopardize a lot of the achievements that he himself has made, including ushering in a new constitution with a two-term limit for presidents. So, he's had 2 terms. He supported a constitution with 2 terms. And we want to see him be a leader in paving the way for a new generation of African leaders and solidifying his own stature as a Democrat in this way. Senegal has a vibrant democracy, a vibrant civil society, and we call on everybody to participate peacefully in this process.
They are a recipient of Millennium Challenge account
They
funds,
are.
which have some
They are.
pretty stringent conditions on good governance. Are these two conflicting?
Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. We need to see what the Senegalese Supreme Court, Constitutional Court says. We need to see how Senegalese political figures respond to that, and then we'll go from there.
President Museveni in Uganda also supported a constitution that had a two-term limit. You said nothing, or this building said nothing, not you, you weren't in this job, but said nothing when he went and launched, amended the constitution to allow for a third term. And if I'm not mistaken, he's being, Deputy Secretary Burns is in Uganda today, talking with President Museveni. Why Senegal? Why can't the Senegalese leader do the same?
Again, we think it will be better for Senegal if the next generation comes forward. Please,
Argentina?
Catherine?
Warren Weinstein, there's a report in Pakistan that says he's alive, and Warren Weinstein, the American contractor who was kidnapped. Do you have an update, or have you seen these reports?
I don't have anything new on Warren Weinstein. If we have anything new out in our embassy, we'll let you know, but I don't have anything new today, unfortunately.
Can we stay just with Americans in distress for a second, or non-distress?
Or
which
was
is-
it Pakistan stuff? No.
This is going to be very brief. Nigeria, the guy who was kidnapped there in the Delta last week has been released. Do you have any details about that?
Well, obviously, we're very happy to see these reports that William Ock has been released by his captors. We, from our consulate in Lagos, are ready to help, but I don't have any further information.
Well, it's the embassy in Abuja that's actually confirming this. What do you mean we were very happy to see these reports? You're saying that the embassy hasn't?
I'm interested that our embassy has confirmed it, because as of my coming down here, we were not in a position to confirm it because we didn't have a Privacy Act waiver on the conversations that our folks may or may not have had with his
Well,
relatives.
his sister says that you've been in touch with him and that you say that he's safe. So
Well,
I
it's
don't-
the usual thing, then we don't have a Privacy Act waiver, so there you go.
Well,
Arsha.
can you say that this guy has been released or not? I'm not asking you who he
We've
is.
seen the reports.
But the
and-
reports are quoting your, by name, the embassy spokeswoman.
Well, I had not seen that, so if in fact that's where we are, we will be even more effusive.
Different topic. Twitter, as you, I think, will be aware, has put out a blog post in which it explains that it is going to give itself the ability to block certain content in certain countries. And I wanted to ask what the State Department thinks about that, particularly in the light of the appeal that the department made to Twitter in Iran following the elections to try to maintain open lines of communication. In censoring, or in giving itself the ability to censor, is it not perhaps becoming a tool of regimes who do not want to see the kind of freedom of expression that the United States so often from this podium champions?
Well, first, just to affirm that, as the Secretary has made clear on numerous occasions, we're strongly committed to protecting fundamental freedoms of expression, assembly, association online, as the Secretary said in her Internet Freedom speech. The choices that private companies make have an impact on how information flows or doesn't flow on the Internet and mobile networks. They also have an impact on what governments can and can't do and on people on the ground. Smart companies need to develop broad principles that guide their action, and in the tech field, this includes principles on freedom of expression, privacy, criteria on when to avoid working with governments that use technology to become more efficient at committing human rights violations, these kinds of things. I think in the Twitter case, what we see here is a company making very clear what its policies are going to be in these circumstances where the choice is operate not at all or operate in a constrained way. So from that perspective, being honest about what you're up to is in keeping with these standards, but until we see how they are implemented and how it impacts on content, we obviously can't evaluate whether this is, a good thing or not for Internet freedom.
Being transparent about your censorship is better than just censoring?
Well, we have a number of examples of companies that are not as upfront about what they do. And at least this way Twitter